Good evening and welcome into Star V Sundays. I'm Billy Derrick alongside former Vanderbilt kicker Joe Bulovas here. We're right back with you talking Vandy football, recapping the loss to Alabama. And right at the top, we're doing some new things here. I'll say that. And so
First of all, the change of scenery.
Yeah.
We're kind of completing our word on that. We told you we're going to do a few different places and get rocking and rolling with that.
Yeah.
So that's first off.
Yeah.
But
the new mics, which they're good mics, we want you guys to let us know that you can hear us. So because that's sort of important. I'm almost positive that we can be heard right now. I know we're seen, but just give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the chat if you can actually hear us. So because we don't want this to be something that people can't hear all the way throughout. But again, almost positive that everybody can hear us. So looking forward to recapping Vandy's loss to Alabama. Of course, on yesterday. Gosh, these days run together now, Joe. But yesterday's 30-14 loss to Alabama. We'll get all into that. Obviously, we'll dive into sort of what the rest of the outlook looks like for the season. And obviously, we got 2 weeks to prepare for LSU. So we'll touch a little bit on some things this team needs to work on in the bye week and then roll into LSU here in a couple of weeks, Joe. But I want to give you the chance. Obviously, we're brought to you by Raymond James Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James, and again, really grateful for Joe and everybody over at Raymond James for continuing to help us. Had a fun time at the tailgate yesterday. Got to see Joe and a bunch of other Vandy fans in Tuscaloosa. That was a blast.
Yeah, no, it was a great turnout. We had so many familiar faces,
Yeah.
and then also a lot of newcomers. The big stage certainly brings out a lot of dedicated alums from kind of all over, and it was great showing. The Alumni Association did a phenomenal job of putting that on, and so when you kind of see that kind of support for Vandy, man, it's a lot of fun. It's really exciting. So hats off to everybody here at Vanderbilt on staff for doing a great job of getting alumni involved, because it's very, very important.
Yeah, especially for a road game like that. That was fun, and it was fun being inside of a legit atmosphere and a really good SEC atmosphere. Not that South Carolina wasn't. I didn't make that trip, so this was really my first time to dive into the legit SEC atmosphere.
It was a great atmosphere. The crowd was rocking and rolling. There was a good buzz around campus on the quad. Game day was there, obviously, and it was really neat. Both sides had a really good showing of fan support. Vandy showed out. They were really loud at times, and obviously, the Bama fans were loud in their home stadium, and so. And we'll get to that too. The crowd certainly played a factor during that game, I think. Yeah. But tremendous atmosphere. It lived up to everything from a excitement standpoint for a fan. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, and look, we're going to get into the game and talk about some positives and negatives and some things to clean up. But it was cool to be inside of an environment for a big game. This was the 2:30 primetime game on ABC. I guess primetime you could say is the night game, but a part of the ABC triple header slate that, if you're a diehard college football fan, you're sitting on your couch, Saturday morning from 11 a.m. to whatever, 9:30. And literally you could sit there and watch the ABC games because they're the best 3 games of the week, typically. I know Fox has Big Noon, but Vanderbilt was a part of the, per se, biggest game of the week. Not that this team is worried about that, but I do think perception-wise, and the fact that Vanderbilt did battle. And I know, like I said, we'll get into the game, but I think a silver lining of this is that Vanderbilt was in a top 20 matchup. Don't not to mention game day was there. This team has elevated despite the loss, despite the frustrations of the loss. That was cool yesterday.
They did a lot of good things. Obviously you're not going to be satisfied with the outcome. And I know Coach Lee and everybody in this building really isn't into what you would call moral victories, but there's a lot to build on from this game, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to build on every week. And so the great teams find ways to get better every single week, regardless of the outcome. So I'm excited for Vanderbilt to step back into the fire in 2 weeks when LSU comes to town.
Yeah.
It'll be a good one.
By the way, we talk about all the quotes that I'm not going to take a picture of that, but that's literally the Clark Lee-ism chart up here in the team room.
I was telling Billy before we got started, when I first got here, there wasn't anything on the walls. It was, laying the foundation for what Vanderbilt football is going to be. And obviously, even if you ask Coach Lee right now, we're nowhere near our full potential, but it was laying the groundwork and finding our identity as a football program.
Yeah.
And so none of this, none of the graphics were here. It was actually, very, very plain. And so it was all about building a culture, building a team, one heartbeat, one mission as a program. And so the team room has definitely come a long way since my, first day here. But, it's a great space. And, man, there's some great individuals, not just football players that fill these seats. So
yeah,
it's been awesome to see.
Good idea, team room. I like it. Who knows? Maybe we'll be somewhere else next week. But
we're still trying to figure out, where we'll bounce to next. So comment section, fire it up. Let us know where you want to see us.
And this may be tough, but a road trip. I know you were thinking about going to Austin. I don't think I'm going to Austin, but it would be kind of cool. I know you were kind of hanging around Tuscaloosa today, because obviously your connections. A road trip, Starby Sundays. Maybe that's a year away.
Yeah, that might be a year away, man. If we're gonna plan that a couple weeks in advance, Miss Lauren might not.
The SEC championship is on a Sunday typically. So.
Yeah, that is true.
So you got that?
Yeah, I'm open to kind of anything. And honestly, like whatever the fans out there that are watching this and the board members that whatever they want to see, whatever that you guys think would be a cool idea, shoot it by us, man. Yeah. We're here because we love Vandy football and we want to give you guys something different that they provide some value to you guys.
Well, and credit to you because originally when we were talking about this, and we'll get into the recap eventually, but we were talking and I kind of was floating out the virtual idea because I do so much of that, in general anyway.
Right.
But Joe goes, hey, let's do it from the north end zone, or at least to start, let's do it together. And I think that really has helped. And I had a couple of people, the fans, he was like, hey, these virtual ones, we got to get back to in person now. We got to get back. And I'm like, no,
it's a little bit cooler. I enjoy, being in front of people and whenever you're around a cool guy like Billy, it's even more fun. But I enjoy being in person. When we get to do in the north end zone, it's a lot of fun because we got a great backdrop and heck, it reminds me of being on that field and stuff like that. And so maybe one of these days when they think I'm cool enough, we'll be able to get in the south end zone. Now, that's some pretty highfalutin stuff there. I don't know if I'm qualified to get us in there, but, it never hurts to ask. The worst they can say is no, not right now. Or heck, never. Well, we still got the north end zone, so we'll play how the cards are dealt.
One day, Joe Bulovas will be in that south end zone.
Golly, man, that's a long way, brother.
That thing's big time, though.
It is.
But and obviously Vanderbilt will be back there at home here in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk again a little bit about LSU. But before we get into any of that, I want to tell you guys a little bit and lead Joe into Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. There's one thing we all share. It's that our lives are all unique. We're busy. We're traveling. Obviously, with the holidays coming up, a lot going on. Well, at Raymond James, they believe that's worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It's about creating the life that you envision. So whether you're building a future or preparing for retirement, a Raymond James financial advisor, in this case, Joe Bulovas, Big Leg Joe, can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that's uniquely yours. That's life well planned. To learn more, give Joe a call, 615-645-6742, or log on to that website, raymondjames.com/Bulovas Wealth Management. Joe, we're going to get to our theme now because I think it's good to lump everything together, and then you can touch on some things if you missed anything at the end. But your last couple themes here, last couple weeks, I've learned some things. I know other people have learned a lot about what you do, your business, and how you can potentially help people and Vanderbilt fans, and not just Vanderbilt fans, but anybody listening and anybody in general. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not as tight maybe as some people think, but what you got this week?
Well, one thing that I'd like to kind of make the theme of this week for is just to bring awareness to estate planning. It's often a topic that gets overlooked a little bit, but it's extremely important. And one of the questions that is very much a heavy-hitting question, but it's very, very real, is if something were tragic to happen to you and you were no longer there to provide for your family, one, what does that look like if you know what planning procedures are in place? And 2, how does that directly impact every one of your family members in your closest circle? Obviously, that points towards your beneficiaries on any sort of estate planning deals. But, it's not just making sure that your final wishes are fulfilled. It's making sure that that is coordinated in the most tax efficient way possible, protecting your assets through potential trusts. If that's the case, obviously we have our estate planning attorneys that we partner with at Raymond James. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's extremely important. And it's often a topic that doesn't get enough recognition of the importance of, and especially when you have questions, it's always our recommendation that you review your estate planning documents every 3 to 5 years and in their entirety. And I'll tell you why.
Start at an age, or you're saying this is obviously not
typically what I
16, you're not,
Yeah, typically what I recommend for clients is if they have a family, as soon as that family starts, or if you even get married, that's the first step. But if it's even more important when you have dependents, especially children. So when you have a family, it's that much more important. And estate planning has changed a lot over the past specifically 10 years. So I would encourage you, anybody out there that has questions about their estate plans, whether that's wills, trust documents, any sort of things in the estate planning realm, allow us to take a look at things and we'll help point you in the right direction if need be. But please don't wait. These things are very, very important. And so you'd rather be safe than sorry, because the last thing you need is for your family to not be taken care of in the most efficient way possible, and making sure your last will and testaments and your final wishes are fulfilled completely. So please, if there's anybody out there that has any questions about that, allow us to be that guide for you.
I like that. That's another really good theme for the week. That again, this is why we bring Joe on here to help you guys. But also,
man, it's my job to know these things.
Exactly. You got a point there. But another reason we bring you on, Joe, you played here, and I joked last week that the build-up was the reason we brought you on. That wasn't the reason we brought you on.
It actually was the only reason. I know that.
Yeah, Joe's out here. He's going to give us his thoughts and then leave. But no, you played here. This program means a lot to you. I bet yesterday was cool, just being able to go back to Tuscaloosa, because look, you spent 4 years there.
Yeah.
Won a couple of national titles. Played
Heck,
under.
I walked into that Malmore football facility at Alabama, and I couldn't grow a single blade of facial hair.
So
I
grew up there.
I grew up by leaps and bounds there. So it was obviously a really special time to go back and see see Vandy, come out there and with guys that I know. And one thing that I may have touched on a few times so far, but when you know the guys on the team and you've played with them, like I have here at Vandy, it's so much fun to see those guys run around and have success. They've earned every opportunity. And I actually stayed after the game and touched base with some of the guys that I played with afterwards. Just told them I was proud of them, proud of the way that they played, and the way that they played the game, not the outcome. That one outcome is not indicative of your success, okay? And every guy in this building has earned the right to play on this stage that Vandy has built for themselves. But when you see guys come out, at the player family gate and they're about to hop on the bus and they're confident, but they're disappointed in the outcome. I saw a team that was really driven to get back to work, to batten down the hatches and make this season theirs. Yep. So I was really encouraged by what I saw. Obviously disappointed in the result, but that doesn't deter this team. And I didn't see that in any of the guys' faces. And I'm excited for this opportunity, because when you do come off of a loss, it can be, you can either approach it and lick your wounds, or you can be a wounded lion, which is the most dangerous cat in the world. Wouldn't want to mess with that one. But
that's I don't know if I'd go that far to where that's where this team is at. But
I'm not saying they're licking their wounds.
Yeah.
I think they're out for their next kill is what I'm saying. I think they're excited to get back to work. I think this bye week right now gives them a great opportunity to get healthy, get those guys that are banged up a little bit more prepared going into LSU, because LSU is going to come in guns a-blazing. They're a good team. They've got athletes everywhere. But Vandy's a team that is extremely dangerous. They've got all the right pieces of the puzzle to accomplish everything they want to the rest of the season. I told pretty much every guy that I touched base with after the game that everything that Vandy wants to accomplish in this season is still out there for them. It's right out there for the taking. Everything that they want to accomplish in this season is still there. A playoff run, a national championship run, all those things they've been talking about, all of those things are still in play. And so it's not about what happened, it's how you respond. And so I think these guys are going to respond in the right way.
I want to run through some of my thoughts. I rewatched the game this morning, and I want to run through kind of some of my thoughts and get your, I guess, reverb of that and reaction to some of those.
Yeah.
The two turnovers in the red zone obviously were killer, and I do think were the difference in the game. They weren't the reason Vanderbilt lost this, but I do think, obviously those were killer. Alabama's scoring drive right before the half, I thought was really important for them. I think being tied 14, again, I told you before we started recording.
Anytime you start, you can score before the half.
Yeah.
It's big, especially for momentum.
Yeah, with I think a minute and a half left until the half, and credit to Ty Simpson and that offense and what they were able to do. I thought the defense, and you mentioned the defense, they kept Vandy in the game, but we saw the offense struggle in the second half. Clark had said after the game that space was hard to come by, and that was a perfect way of putting it, because you saw in the first half, Joe, the Cedric Alexander 65-yarder. Right. By the way, the longest play from scrimmage this season. You saw Pavia's 33-yard run.
Right.
A couple other runs here or there,
splitting the gaps when they come available.
And Sherrill had I think a 15-yarder, and Hoskins, and some plays through the air as well,
right,
in some zone coverages.
Yeah, so we were talking beforehand about this a little bit. One of the things that I noticed from the second half, from the first half transitioning to the second half, is obviously Vandy had more success in the first half on offense. A couple of reasons there. I saw Alabama more in a zone coverage most of the time on defense. Not to say that they weren't manning up at times, but in the second half, what I saw is they were loading the box, whether it was blatantly obvious or not, but they were also manning up our receivers. And what that tells me, I'm not a quarterback. I was in high school, but I was nowhere near good enough to play in the SEC as a quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of reiterating what I saw, but I saw basically the DBs, cornerbacks specifically, man up our guys on the outside and say, hey, if you're going to beat us through the air, you're going to have to beat us mano-a-mano with our secondary players. And we're going to stop the run, because that's where you guys have had success. You're having success in the middle of the field, in the box, splitting tackles, and getting out of the gate for a nice chunk of change. So if I'm a defensive coordinator, if I'm a DC for Alabama, I'm saying, okay, we're going to say, like I said, you're going to have to beat us through your guys on the perimeter. You're going to have to get the ball to them, but we're not going to let you breathe with all our guys in the box. And that's what they kind of that was their philosophy, I thought, in the second half. And it, credit to Alabama, they had a really good schematic approach in the second half. They made adjustments, and they forced Vandy to be a little one-dimensional. Yeah. And when
that's not always easy to do, by the way. You mentioned too, kind of doing the simple things, doing the easy things well.
Yeah.
But that's not always.
Like Kirby Smart at Georgia, and he did this in an interview, and him and Sarkisian were saying something at like it was a bowl game in a playoff, and Coach Saban sitting there, and Saban says, they're all full of it, and then they're talking about doing simple better. But you know what that is? When you break it down, that's exactly what's most important, is who does simple better, who does their fundamentals better. Because at the end of the day, if you can read through the smoke and mirrors, it comes down to the guys in the trenches, the guys making the plays and getting into position to be successful on the field. And, it was tough because of Vandy. I think they had those opportunities. And I haven't broken down the film like these coaches have, but they're going to look back. I know they are, and if they've probably already broken down the film all night, knowing the staff, they work their tails off and do a phenomenal job. But they're going to see there's opportunities to get better on offense and defense. But from an offensive perspective, as Vandy going against that Alabama defense, it was really hard to find success when you get down, but also when you're getting, stuffed.
Yeah.
Playing a lot of guys in the box. So their credit to their defense in the second half. They played a really good scheme, and they executed it well.
Yeah, and they imposed their will on both sides in the second half. I did think Colby Taylor and Josh Singh played well, in particular on defense. Josh Singh, I mean, best game. He wasn't here last year, right? But I think, and he's played well in spots this year. But credit to that guy. I thought he played well. I thought, again, Taylor, and hopefully he's able to get back healthy. He's probably a little banged up right now, but you talk about bye week coming at a good time. It's coming at a good time for him. Look, offensively, there were some drops, but again, you have to, and the fumble too, right? I told you before we got on, that's a heck of a play by Justin Jefferson, the Alabama linebacker.
Yeah.
And look, it's a game of inches, right?
That's exactly right.
If the knee happens to hit, a half second earlier, then maybe Vandy has 3 points. But
and you can't ever fault a guy like trying to make something happen for his team. And Diego had a lot of gutsy plays and runs and tosses and scrambles. He did a phenomenal job of trying to extend plays when Alabama called a really good defense to defend against them and our key players. So, I never fault a guy for trying to make something happen. Obviously, he's going to be upset about that. But, I'll take that guy any day of the week.
Yeah.
The way that young man plays and the way he leads his team. I think there's a lot. There might be some people out there like, man, why couldn't we be as successful as like we were against Utah State? We saw so many points. Like, this is a phenomenal team that Vandy just played. This is a very, very sound team. When Kirby Smart says, gives high praise to a quarterback, like he did last week for Ty Simpson, that tells you a lot right there.
Oh yeah.
And what I saw a lot from Alabama was like they were checking into good plays on offense and defense.
Yeah.
So they have smart players, they have talented players. But I tell you what, proud of the way Vandy played on offense. They never gave up. They did things the right way. They played pretty disciplined. I was pleased with that. And I know there's a lot of emotion behind this game, but I felt like they did a good job of leaving emotion at the door.
Yeah.
You want to play with emotion, but not play emotionally.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, that fumble that Diego had, I think he did a phenomenal job trying to make something happen, and that's what a leader does.
Yeah, and look, Vandy's not in this position without him, so
absolutely not. No.
You can't forget that. I thought the Alabama crowd played a factor, especially late.
Yeah.
We got to go down on the field. We weren't allowed on the field before the game, but press was able because to get to the press box, press conference room, you got to walk on the field, and it was loud. I'll just say that it was loud.
The student section did their job, man. It was rocking and rolling. Sometimes that crowd doesn't show up as much as the players and coaches probably want it to, but it was a primetime game. 2 great teams playing each other, and it was loud. I was basically on the other side of the stadium from the student section, and it was rocking. It was rocking.
And that makes a difference because
we were like, for Vandy's perspective, we took the ball going out again, like to our back with with Vandy's backs to the student section. Yes. That's the loudest part of the stadium.
Yeah,
and I was really impressed that we didn't have any procedural penalties.
Yeah. And I'm not making it. I'm not going to make excuses, but I do think Bryant-Denny Stadium, that facility, the in-game noise from the fans, but the in-game presentation is an obvious advantage for the home team. And look, Neyland Stadium's that way. LSU's that way. There's a lot of SEC stadiums that are that way. And look, you can overcome them, right? If you're the better team that day, things like this aren't issues, or you don't think about them.
Yeah.
But these are things I think about when you lose the game. One thing in particular, the crowd made a huge difference on the I think it was around 3 minutes left in the game. Trey Richardson was fairly open. Pavia hit him. It was a little bit of a low throw. Initially, I'm watching the video board. I couldn't tell. I couldn't see over the players in the field. Sure. I don't know if you could tell if he caught that from where you were sitting. On TV, obviously.
I couldn't. I couldn't. We couldn't tell from where we were sitting, but then obviously the video.
Yeah.
showed everything.
People on TV probably could have were able to tell.
Yeah.
But when they instantly show the replay on the Jumbotron, and the fans freak out and they're screaming. Vandy snaps the ball. So another second, like if you don't have that loud of a reaction and the instant video board, it's all timed together. And I know there's a lot of stadiums that do that. But I was thinking about that. And then the sun factor too. Alabama's sideline was pretty much in the shade the entire time.
Yeah, so those of you out there that don't know how the stadium is structured, it's the same way here at Vandy, the orientation of the stadium, I mean. So the opposing team this week, Vandy, was in the sun the entire game up until maybe the start of the fourth quarter. So, and it was a hot one. It was a steamy one down there.
It was toasty.
And you know, I was down for the game, and so was Billy. And you know, leading up to the game, it was hot.
Yeah.
And then somewhere around right before kickoff, it got really hot. Mm-hmm. And that stadium becomes a little bit like an oven because there's not much wind in there. Any wind kind of dies up the top.
It's pretty steep, especially in the end zones.
It is. And the fans are right on top of you, especially in the end zones, especially towards the student section. But it becomes like an oven. So like when I would be in fall camp over there, I'd be just.
How brutal was that?
It was another level of hot, man. Because like Coach Saban was very structured on how he ran those Saturday practices
to make sure you guys struggle.
In fall camp in the stadium. So we win the stadium once a week, and it was brutal. You know, when your feet are just completely soaked, like your cleats essentially are just completely soaked.
Yeah.
Everybody's just gassed. You know, guys are getting IVs as soon as they get back to the training room. Yeah. It really, especially when you don't have bodies in there to kind of take away the sun getting attracted to the benches because it's concrete and steel all over there. So it turns into like a convection oven, man. It's so hot. So in fall camp, it would be brutal. And Coach did have a tendency to maybe extend practice a time or two.
Yeah.
So it got hot, but Vandy was in the sun the entire time is what we're getting at. And Alabama was in the shade the entire time, the way the sun was going down over the stands.
Right.
They got a good bit of cover from the stands in the shade. So, you know, when I was playing there, it was never all that bad, unless it was like an 11 a.m. kickoff, but it was 2:30. And you would think even at like 2:30, like, man, the sun's got to be pretty hot in the sky.
The sun really never went away because on the press box side, I don't know if you were on the Vandy sideline.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were kind of baking in it too.
Man, I got some sun.
Yeah. So, those are small things. And again, I'm not making excuses, but I do want people to know, for maybe who didn't make the trip, that you can feel it. You know, you can feel some of those built-in advantages.
Right.
Again, that's something small. But I did want to mention James Smith, defensive tackle at Alabama, came back in the second half. I thought he gave their defense a big boost. Yeah. And he's one of their better players on defense and maybe on the team as a whole. He's
one thing about that team is like they have depth.
Yeah.
And they have really quality depth guys.
Well, and you look at their guys. I mean, those are 4 or 5 star guys.
That's exactly right.
You look at James Smith in particular, the way he's built.
Yeah. They're always going to be, well, I wouldn't say always, but, you know, they're going to be a heavy contender recruiting place.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of the past year, that they're going to recruit very, very well. So they have talented guys everywhere. But you know what? Vandy had talented guys everywhere too. Mm-hmm. And like I said before in our previous segments, is the margins in these games are so small, so small, and that's either way, because if a few things go Vandy's way, I think Vandy wins. Yeah. If a few things go more Alabama's way, then it's a little bit more of a victory towards them. You know, maybe another touchdown or so, but. Like on every play, you could make a case for like, man, if we just did this, if we just got this block, if we just kicked this guy out, if we pitched it here instead of gave it, every team's going to be saying those things because they're true. They're right there. So the margins are so small, and it's never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. But I challenge, I think Vandy is going to do a very nice job, and I know they're all very driven to find ways to get better. And one thing that is very evident in coaching and as a player is losing highlights mistakes and errors, winning erases them from your view. So when you're winning, and I'm not saying this is the case at Vandy, but your errors stand out more when you lose. And when
Yeah.
you win, your errors stand out way less because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you won. You got the end result that you're looking for. But here at Vandy and really in every solid program, they're not concentrated on the outcome. They're concentrated on the process and the individual play in front of them, learning from the past one, and getting ready to go play that next opponent.
Yeah.
So that's going to be Vandy's challenge.
Yeah.
And the next challenge is LSU.
And if you think about it, Joe, last year they had 2 weeks to prepare for Alabama coming off a road SEC loss.
Mm-hmm.
Similar situation here.
Yeah.
2 weeks to prepare for LSU at home, a top 15 team right now. I think they're number 13 in the country. And they've got South Carolina this week. So, they play, right? They have a week to prepare. You've got 2 weeks to prepare. So, again, similar situation. And so I think people need to remember that. One thing I wanted to mention, too, Joe, defensively, and I made sure to ask Clark about this after the game. What did you kind of see defensively with your team? And going into the bye, what are some things you want to clean up? He instantly credited Ty Simpson for a lot of that.
He did a nice job.
Simpson did a really good job of getting out of the pocket.
I was just about to say that. He did a really good job of extending plays.
Getting out of the pocket, but it was rare when he tucked. I think he tucked it and ran it once.
Yeah, no, he did
that first down.
He hung in there a long time, and he got the ball to his receivers and his running backs, but he wasn't flustered. Is what I'm getting at. He methodically kept the play alive, and Vandy had some great blitzes drawn up. They did a really good job of getting after him. He just moves in the pocket really well. He's a polished quarterback.
He keeps his eyes downfield.
He keeps his eyes downfield, and he moves in the pocket while keeping his eyes downfield. In this level of play, the great quarterbacks are going to be the ones that obviously get the ball to the playmaker's hands, do that efficiently, and don't turn the ball over. But it's also guys that can hang in the pocket, keep your eyes downfield, and extend drives.
Yeah.
And not every guy can do that. And he did a really good job of that. Credit to Alabama and Ty Simpson and how because it was a team effort. Vandy had a great scheme for them on defense. I really think they did a really nice job of getting after him, but he did just enough to keep those plays alive and give Alabama a fighting chance. And heck, it is Vandy's job to get off the field on third down. And Vandy didn't do enough of that. And like I say, the margins are so slim.
Yeah,
so slim. It's going in on side your blitz rather than going around on a tackle. Something so similar and so simple as that. It could have such a big consequence of converting on third down, big explosive play.
Right.
But Ty did a nice job. He really did.
Yeah, played well. Obviously, Jam Miller had a day. But I do want to – and again, reminder, if you guys have comments and questions, fire them in. We do have a few, and we do have a couple of comments, so we'll get to those. But we want you guys – and again, apologies, we were a little late today getting it going, but get those comments and questions rolling, and we'll get those answered and talked about. But some numbers, Joe, obviously the passing yards difference in the game was a part of the difference in the game, right? 340 for Alabama, Vanderbilt 198. Average per attempt. I want to highlight that. Alabama averaged 11 yards per attempt, Vandy 5.5. So you kind of saw, and a lot of that was probably second. Well, Alabama had some chunk plays in the first half too, but Vandy's chunk plays in the passing game were really in the first half for the most part.
And one thing that I would like to highlight on that is Alabama did a phenomenal job, and I'll give credit to them here, of controlling the clock and controlling the time of possession. And doing so methodically without being overweight in the run game. Like you just said, he had over 300 yards passing, but they were able to run the ball efficiently. And I don't know how many yards they averaged rushing. Do you know?
How many average?
For Alabama.
Oh, let's see. Average per rush, 38.
There's no way.
So, and I saw that. Oh, no.
No average rushing yards. I was about to say.
I was looking at rushing attempts. My bad. 38 would have been insane.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Let's see. It's not showing up. Okay, so hold on. 146 yards rushing, 38 attempts, average per rush, 3.8. Sorry. So 3.8, Vandy 7.1. Sorry, that took forever to pull up. Average per rush for Alabama, 3.8.
Oh, it's 3.8. Okay.
Yeah.
And we had 7 yards per rush.
Yeah.
You
that's a little hard to believe
that is hard to
considering
believe.
how the second half. But
Yeah.
if you remember, Vandy had the 65-yarder from Cedric Alexander.
Yeah.
He only had 4 carries for the game. And
True
then
enough.
Pavia, if you look at
he had a
Diego,
good scamper too.
Yeah, if you look at Diego, he had a 33-yard run, but ultimately only had he had 12 carries actually. So, but Newberry had 1 carry and MK Young had 1 carry.
Yeah.
So I think we've gotten so used to them seeing more action than maybe they did.
Yeah. Well, what I was getting at is really just like Alabama did a great job of controlling the time of possession and not becoming one-dimensional of just running the ball. They made their living off of passing and running. You know, their first drive out of the gate on the second half, I believe, they ran the ball the entire way to get a score.
Right.
And it felt like they had the ball forever. And they did a really nice job of kind of taking a page out of Vandy's playbook of like, hey, if you can't, we're going to run this until you stop it. And they did a really nice job of controlling the narrative and controlling the clock in the second half.
Right.
And you know, like I said before, they relied on their core principles of what makes them successful as a team, and their athletes and going to their go-to guys, but also being very balanced. When as a defensive coordinator, you know, it's hard to prepare for that because you have to prepare for the run and the pass, even when you know you have to get off the field, and that's hard. It's easier to get off the field if you know they are, you know, hands down probably going to run the ball or hands down in the passing situation. But when they're getting third and manageable and converting and these manageable situations, it's really tough on the defense. So our defense I felt like it was out there a lot. Yeah. And they kept converting to do it. They did it methodically. So it kept our offense on the sideline and unable to get in a rhythm, which is kind of what the story of what happened last year here on West End with Alabama. You know, we did the same thing to Alabama.
Flipped the script.
We flipped the script, and they kind of flipped the script on Vandy this year a little bit. And, you know, credit to them. They played a really good game, but Vandy played a really sound game. It was just a game of inches here and there that came down to it.
A couple other numbers, red zone chances. Alabama had 5, and they scored in all 5 red zone chances. Vandy had 3. They only scored in 1. So that'll typically get you unless you know
Coach
you're playing.
Lee preaches that all the time. Is like when we are in the red zone, we finish with touchdowns, and that's the mindset of that he's always had. Is like, and especially you know you saw this past weekend is field goals will get you to the door, but they will not let you in.
Yeah, you saw it with Alabama.
Exactly. You know, their kicker missed one, but you know when they got in the red zone, they scored. And good teams finished drives, and Alabama did that obviously more than Vandy did this weekend. But you know, turnovers in the red zone are the one thing you don't want, and then you know, really just turnovers. Because heck, you know, if you get a field goal in the red zone, it's not the worst thing. You know, you get 3 points out of it. The bottom line is to always score, but obviously we want to finish with touchdowns. And
I hate it for Brock because you know didn't get a chance to see, you know, Talty he was 3 of 4. Felt like Brock should have played a role in yesterday's game. It's unfortunate he didn't. And as a kicker,
that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. As a kicker, I caught up with him after the game and I just told him to keep swinging away. You know, they're going to need him down the stretch here, and he's done a really nice job. Well, if anything,
that shows you they're going to need him
in
these SEC games.
Like tight margins, man. And so he's going to play a factor in these games coming up. Yeah. But that's how it is as a kicker. Like I was telling Billy a few segments back, like as a kicker, you don't pick your opportunities. It's your job to make the most of them. It could be a 25-yarder. It could be a 55-yarder to win the game. And the situation is fully dictated on everything you can't control.
Right.
Because your job is to go out there and come through for your team and be a great teammate. So.
And then you had the sacks, Joe. Vandy had 4 sacks for 27 yards. Alabama only had 1. So Pavia was only sacked 1. Simpson sacked 4 times. And after the game, he had said that, you know, you can't take some of those. But Vandy deserves some credit. I did think coming out of that, you're encouraged. I mean, I would love to know the last time, like even going back to the last win in Tuscaloosa, how many sacks did Vanderbilt have on Alabama? Do you remember how many they had last year? I know Capers had the strip sack.
Right. Does that count as a sack, or is that just fumble?
That's a good point.
I would say it was
Maybe.
just a fumble.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, 4 sacks against that offense.
Yeah.
Is pretty impressive. Now, Clark said this after the game too. It didn't mean anything really. It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 sacks didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And they could have had more, Joe. I thought, Hurd obviously came in on some blitzes. Fontenette came on some. Didn't feel like too many of those hit. Credit Alabama. I thought Miller did a really good job on one play in particular on a deep ball to Ryan Williams in pass protection.
Yeah, no, I was telling everybody before the game of like when they asked like, hey, what do you think of this game? And my biggest thing, and Billy and I we're talking about this before we got on, is it was going to be a tale of the defenses. Who could get off the field on third down the most? Who could create turnovers for their offense to give that ball back to their playmakers? Coach Lee uses the phrase of bend but don't break. Vandy bent a lot, but they didn't break, especially early on. And Alabama just found ways to extend drives a little bit more, and Vandy had to adapt. Mm-hmm. And Alabama did, like I said, they did a really good job of keeping the defense guessing a little bit.
Yeah.
And they never had to become one-dimensional. They had the run game going, they had the passing game going. But it was going to be a tale of what defense would not break. Yeah. And Alabama did just enough to win on all sides. Credit to them. But I really think Vandy, this is a great opportunity for them to come out swinging again, because they're going to have a lot of things to improve on.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things to improve on. But it's nothing that they don't already know.
Yeah.
And they're going to find quality opponents down the road. So who better to do that with than LSU?
Yeah.
A great team, lots of athletes, very similar to Alabama in a lot of respects. But I think this team's ready to get back after it. They're going to get ready physically, and then I think it's going to be a great 2 weeks of prep for these guys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too. A lot of times, historically, at least with Vanderbilt, and in my lifetime, you come out of an Alabama game pretty banged up. Especially going back to 2017. I remember, Derrick Mason was here, and a certain Vanderbilt player did some talking, and Vandy ended up losing 59-0. But Vandy, that essentially derailed their season, in a way,
right? Because
they were so beat up after that. And Alabama, I think, won the national title.
Yeah, we did win it when I was there
that year. Yeah. So they were legit, right? They were ultimately the best team in the country. Tua comes in late and shows what he's about, but that really derailed Vanderbilt. I don't see that this year. And look, you're the SEC, so week in, week out, you're going to see wear and tear. You're going to be banged up. You're going to have some bangs and bruises.
100%.
But I don't look at this as, man, how are they going to come out in a couple of weeks against LSU?
No, but it is going to be a test of the guy's maturity level, and it takes a mature guy to be a starter in the SEC. And it takes a mature guy to be a starter in the SEC and to do things off the field that put him in another category, in a higher category. So that this week, that's recovery, that's taking care of your schoolwork. We don't talk about that much on the show, but Vandy's a tough school. Mm-hmm. It demands a lot from you. And so using the bye weeks to get caught up or ahead, hopefully they're getting ahead rather than caught up.
Yeah.
But, this is a great opportunity to batten down the hatches, get things squared away so that when we do come back and play LSU here, the lesser of the veil, there's less variables to take care of.
Right.
Take care of your schoolwork, get recovery, eat well, don't be running to the fast food joints and getting milkshakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that stuff doesn't fly. It'll bite you in the tail down the road. But it's going to be a test of maturity in the bye week, and it always is. Who's going to be the more disciplined team on their bye weeks?
Well, you can win and lose a bye week as well. Clark
100%. Yeah, you and every team has that opportunity to take it maturely or to be very immature about it.
Yeah.
it's all up to them. And I know the
choice,
coaches
yeah.
are going to be very involved in like getting back to the fundamentals of, hey, take care of your schoolwork, or let's be intentional with our practice, do simple better. Maybe input some different schemes that we haven't touched on since fall camp.
Mm-hmm.
Bye weeks are a great opportunity to get back to the basics in a fundamental standpoint, but also in fall camp, a lot of times you put in packages that you're like, we're not going to run this wrinkle until say like week 4 or 5 after we get out of our stretch of early games. And then once we get into SEC play, we'll start incorporating this more into our defensive looks or offensive schemes. So this is a great opportunity for Vanderbilt to get reaccustomed to those new schemes and those new formations that, especially with the offense, I mean, your guess is as good as mine about what they're going to come out with. They could come out with 3 or 4 tight ends, it looks like, they're heavy package, and then the next thing they're in a wildcat formation or something like that. So they're very, diverse with their packages and play calls. So
another thing I wanted to mention on the game, and again, we'll hit on LSU, and I do want to get to some comments and questions, but the difference between the skill players on both teams in terms of numbers: Ryan Williams, 6 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Jeremy Bernard, 5 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Isaiah Horton had a couple of really impressive grabs, 4 catches, 66 yards. And then you go to Vandy. I thought Sherrill had, a couple of drops, but, he had a 15-yard catch there, 6 catches, 49 yards. Hoskins had a couple as well.
Yeah.
I thought Stowers, look, Vanderbilt would not be in this spot without Stowers, Diego, and several other guys. 7 targets, 3 catches. Going into the bye week, I look forward to seeing how Diego and how Eli bounce back from as disappointing, at least individually, a type of game for them.
I don't see, they're very mature guys, especially when you talk about their personal performance.
Yeah.
They're very mature about how they improve. And heck, they're literally always in that room over there watching film of the opponent's defense and how it would look against all the routes that we may run and schemes that we may run. So I think they're going to understand, like, hey, let's take a step back here, but let's not change anything at the end of the day. We're playing on a really high level, and they know that, and everybody knows our offense and the offensive players that we have are playing at a very high level. So, and let's call what it is. Alabama called a really solid game against Diego and Eli. But every team has those 2 guys circled. If they're, I guarantee there's a couple or maybe a good bit of these defensive coordinators out there like, hey, on offense, if we can take away these 2, 3, 4 guys and force them to play in a different fashion, then I like our chances. And like I said before, I think, the skill players, but basically what I saw Alabama do in the second half, which was kind of like, I wasn't surprised by it, but they just manned us up. They forced us to play within the tackles, and because most of the success we saw in the run game was in the first half and between the tackles and making stuff happen in that respect. So, and I even remember when I was here, man, we had Coach Lee say that when our go-to when we're struggling on defense is to go man and just let our guys play, that's when I know we've arrived. And that's really powerful. When you have a team that can do that, it opens up a lot of ways to be successful. You have more guys in the box to stop the run, and that's essentially what I saw Alabama do more of. I'm not saying that's all they did, but from a defensive perspective, when I was watching Alabama on defense, I saw that a lot more. Way more than in the first half. And flip the script, I did see Alabama run a lot of when they ran their passing routes, they ran man beaters. They forced our guys to be athletic and cover in space. And sometimes there were good matchups. Sometimes we didn't have good matchups on guys. But I did see some meshes, some crosses, which I anticipated seeing.
Well, and it looked like Vanderbilt did too. Alabama's success came in a lot of the vertical seam routes down the sideline. You saw the Horton one early, and then the one right before the half to Bernard for the touchdown. That's a vertical seam down the sideline. You see with Tennessee a lot with the wide splits.
Usually what they do with that is like they'll exploit the coverage.
And you force Hurd to make a decision, and you had the tight end on a post.
Mm-hmm.
Hurd, and this is credit to Simpson, because not every quarterback makes this read. And if you go back to the Florida State game for Ty, he wasn't necessarily making those reads as quickly.
Yeah.
He made that adjustment, and he was making really quick reads and quick decisions, and that's a lot of credit to him too.
He did a really nice job, man.
I'm not just going to sit here and say, hey, that's a tough play for any safety. When you have a tight end on a post,
yeah,
Ty is reading however Hurd reacts quickly. If he moves at all to the tight end, boom, that's where he's going.
That's the type of route that you call whatever the defender does, he's wrong. It's like an RPO, but a deeper concept. You key a guy, you key a safety, especially on those deep crossing routes or almost like a flood concept. When you have a defender, most likely a safety, between the under route and the over the top route, whichever one he picks, essentially he's going to be wrong in a certain sense. You're going to have one lesser defender on a certain route, and so that's what you saw. You saw Ty extend plays and make the right reads. He was very efficient. And I was proud of the way Vandy got to him. The D line and our pressures and stuff like that, but they did a really good job. So I was impressed with that, but I was impressed with the way that our defense kept battling, because they were on the field for a long time in that second half.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to get to that in a second, kind of the drive chart. You mentioned the D-line. Jalen Stone had did he have a sack? He didn't have. He was in on a few sacks. Didn't get credit for one, but I talked about Josh Singh. He had a sack. Capers had a sack. Sidner had a sack. Zaylen Wood had a sack as well. Singh had 2 tackles for loss, man. I thought he played really well. Martell Hyde had the interception, of course, and was in danger of being ejected there. I didn't think that was targeting. Ryan Williams was not defenseless.
No,
he was in an athletic position and gearing up for Martell to hit him. Not necessarily helmet, but
what I did notice from the stats that you said a little bit ago is, like, for the Alabama receiver standpoint, that they went to their athletes.
Yeah.
Again, that
like Cuevas,
when Alabama struggled here last year and they tried to make their push back, what did they do? They went back to their athletes.
They went to Williams.
They went to Williams. Milroe just unloaded and went to Williams, and then they would run a quarterback design run with Milroe. So it was all about getting the ball in the hands of those playmakers instead of necessarily.
And they were able to do it.
And so you saw that again this week. Like, they went to their go-to guys time and time again of, hey, we need something to happen. They went to their best players on the key plays, and they converted. They kept drives alive. Yeah. And when you have great players and they're open, and you have a great quarterback that's going to find the open guy and go through his reads, he's a guy. Ty is a guy that will sit back there until he can't.
Oh yeah.
And so if he goes through all 4 to 5 reads and he still doesn't have pressure, he's still going to sit in there and wait till some guy gets open and extend play. So, it was just like it was impressive to see. I wouldn't say it was impressive the way that they converted and kept drives alive, but I thought it was pretty in par with what I thought of. Bama's going to go their go-to guys. Right. They're going to let their athletes play and see what Vandy can do to counterpunch.
And, boy, they've got 3 of them, and that's going to be tough for any defense.
You saw them come up big last week against Georgia.
Yeah. Stay tuned for this Alabama offense. They got Missouri next week.
And people forget, man, DeBoer, he got a lot of criticism from Bama fans and people all over of, like, but he's won everywhere he's been. You're seeing him put together his own offense now, and they've been an impressive team to watch the past few weeks.
Defensively, I thought Justin Jefferson, 14 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, 1 forced fumble. That kid was everywhere.
Yeah.
So credit to him. I want to get to the drive chart here, Joe, because I think it's important. And then again, we do have some comments and questions, and you hit on it a little bit there, that last drive. Well, I guess it wasn't the last drive technically, but the drive that won the game for Alabama, essentially, or iced the game, was let's see here. Okay, so they got a field goal out of it, which was kind of funny. They scored a touchdown with 17 seconds left, which covered. But the last 5 drives, Bama got points. For Vandy, the last 4 drives, they didn't get any points. So that
Yeah.
was, again, sort of the difference in the game.
To what you said, too, I don't believe Bama punted the entire game.
Bama, they punted once.
When? First half?
They punted in the second quarter.
Yeah.
With 7:37 or 5:56 left.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I remember that now. But yeah, when you're scoring in the second half on every drive and the opponent isn't, it's tough. You know, you've got Bama did a good job of finding ways to get points. Vandy it was maybe a little bit too little, too late.
So after the interception, Joe, this was the drive that essentially iced the game. Pavia throws the interception, and obviously Vandy's sideline is demoralized. Vandy's defense has to kind of go right back out there. And there was 12:37 left in the game when the drive started. When the drive ended, there was 4:08 left. It was an 8.5-minute drive for Alabama, 16 plays.
They did a great
69
job.
yards.
Like I said, especially in the second half, they did a really good job of controlling the clock, finishing drives with points. If you're going to take that much time off the clock, better come away with points, because if you hold the ball for that long and you don't score, it doesn't really do a whole lot. It just brings you closer to a win or a loss, but you didn't help yourself win.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was. They did a good job. Obviously, Vandy's going to find ways to improve and get ready to go for LSU. But yeah, no, it was. I'm glad that if they're going to lose a game, I'm glad that it happened early in the season. One thing that I don't know if you saw much at game day. Did you catch the?
Yeah, I did. I watched.
So Coach Saban said, and he would tell us when I was there, he only had one team out of all his national championship teams that went undefeated. Wow. So everything that Vandy wants to accomplish is right out there for the taking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to take a special level of maturity for every guy in there to make the right choices and decision to put themselves in a position to be successful. And that comes down from eating right. That comes down to studying, taking care of your schoolwork, and also being a great teammate, hitting the training room, lifting. This is a great opportunity to get that full strength back. But that bye week doesn't say you got to lay down and be lazy by any means. This is a work period. This great opportunity to get back to being Vanderbilt football and go make a statement in 2 Saturdays from now.
Yeah. All right. So again, we are live, and we do typically like to go live because we get comments and questions. We're going to rumble through some of those. If you're watching right now, now's the time to get a comment or a question in, and then we'll wrap up maybe here in about 10 minutes or so. Joe, we'll rumble through some of these. Joe asks, why did the guys stop running the football after early success? I saw that Bama was shading the box, but to just basically abandon it was mystifying. To me, I don't think
he's saying that Vandy abandoned the run.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. I think the first play of that second half was it that pass to Sherrill, the 15-yarder? All right, we should be back. Sorry about that, guys. That's the only. No, so the thing about that is, and this has happened to Luke Wyatt, one of our co-hosts on the podcast. If you're doing a podcast from your phone and you're in the stream like that and get a call.
Yeah, so my sister's gonna have a nice little chat with me about that. No, I'm just kidding. My sister, I saw it on my phone. I was like, why? What's the buzzing? And then I was like, I see my sister's phone, name on my phone pop. I'm like, golly.
We're talking Vandy football. Come on.
But you know what? I say all that. And she'll be the first one to get a call from me because I always call family right back just in case if I gotta miss it. But
absolutely,
chances are she just want to chat. Probably some roommate drama.
Nothing
I don't
know. But anyway, so that's kind of why we X'd out there a little bit. But we're back. What I was getting at, Joe, was this goes along the lines of I don't necessarily think they abandoned it to abandon it. I think it was what they were seeing. When you're seeing a loaded box.
Yeah, if you've got 8 guys in the box or 7 guys in the box to your 5 or 6, that's not a favorable matchup. That's
no matter who you play, really.
Right. And so it goes right back to what I said is like, hey, if you're gonna beat us from Alabama's perspective on defense, we're gonna man you up and we're gonna force you guys to beat us with your skill players against ours, and we're gonna load the box.
Yeah.
We're gonna stop the run because that's where we've been gashed, and that's what they did. So, question, kind of plays well into kind of what we've been talking about. But yeah, no, I don't think they abandoned it. I think. When you have a good matchup, you want to exploit that opportunity, and I think Vandy had a lot of opportunities to they saw things that they liked, but credit to Alabama, they did a good job of neutralizing what Vandy ultimately could do.
Jake says, I feel like they ran the plays that Alabama gave them, just didn't execute.
Yeah, I think Bama at times gave us a few yards on certain plays.
Yeah. There was one to Sherrill in particular, couple to Sherrill.
Yeah.
There was one to Tristan Brown early.
Right.
That one to Hoskins. They were giving Vandy some things through the air.
They were, but they didn't let the explosive plays beat them.
Yes.
Especially
they were giving up those 6-7 yards and then loading the box on the run.
That's exactly right. They were going to allow you to throw underneath all day.
They would let you get to that 3rd and 4.
Right. But the thing is, Vandy got to a point where it almost looked like they were frustrated.
They were getting baited sort of into an ultimate stop on 3rd down.
Right. It seemed like I don't want to dig too far into this, but it seemed like Alabama did a good job of getting them off schedule just enough to prevent them from marching down the field.
Yeah.
But I do think Alabama was willing to give up some of the smaller stuff, and heck, I know how Coach Saban's defense used to be is those chunk plays underneath, those are going to happen at time to time. But what shouldn't happen is that 60-yard bomb on us and a guy gets above our secondary.
Yeah.
That should not happen. So I think it was a little bit of that. It's like, we're not going to let you guys beat us from a schematic standpoint of, us playing zone and you're not going to be as deep. So they took that away, but they gave us, the 5-yard hitch. They gave you the slant. But when you only have that available, you try and make stuff happen. I can't fault anybody for trying to extend plays and make something bigger happen, because it takes a lot of guts to make something happen against a great team. And Vandy did a good job of trying to make stuff happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of a different deal with Alabama. They didn't give up any big plays essentially in the second half.
Somebody asks as well, how did Cedric only get 4 carries? I will say this, he had 3 catches, so he had 7 touches overall.
Right.
And look, it's easy to look at that. He had the 65-yard run early. I think it goes along the lines of that same answer to that first question. Why did the guys stop running the football after early success?
Right.
It's a number. Offensive football is a numbers game.
And if you stay the same, you get left behind.
Right.
If we kept running the ball, like Jerry Kill and Coach Beck have been doing this for a long time. Long time. If we're going back to last year and the game doesn't pan out the way that it did, we'd be asking the same questions of, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? They're trying to get ahead of what the defense is going to give them next, because obviously they're trying to take away the run in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Vandy found success on the ground. How do you take that away? Well, you force Diego to make really hard throws, but you also stop the run. And that's how you load the box. You play with a guy, maybe you bring in a safety and linebacker and and have them, I got two guys on top of one, and you bring a guy in and one's blitzing, one's covering. You just mix things up, but you load the box regardless, and you take away the thing that's been successful for Vandy, and they did it. They did a decent job of it.
Another comment here. Nate says, I thought it was great that we didn't really have any offensive line penalties like usual. There was an early false start on McConnell, but outside of that,
see that's where the crowd can play a factor,
right? But you didn't. I mean, it's not like you saw multiple
Vandy,
of those.
Vandy, a lot of the time, I think Diego went mostly on the clap.
Oh yeah.
That can be tough.
Yeah,
even wording, the cadence by mouth, that's tough too. That's harder to hear for an offensive lineman than a clap, because sometimes a clap is more piercing. But if the crowd gets really loud and you go on the second clap or maybe even the third clap, then things get a little dicey. So the crowd does a decent job of taking that away and making you become hey, on one almost every single time or something like that. But I was encouraged by that too. I think that the O-line did a good job of not shooting themselves in the foot. And I think Vandy, for most of the game and for the whole game, was good on penalties.
That's what was also unfortunate about it, because
they were very disciplined.
Yeah, you had some mistakes, whether it was drops,
right?
Jalen Stone at the end, and Clark, obviously voiced his opinion on that. And then the cameras also showed, when I watched the rerun, Clark kind of bringing Jalen back in and kind of like your dad when you're young, Joe. You accidentally hit the hot stove with your hand, or put your hand in the cookie jar, and the initial jolt is some disappointment and probably some anger, but then he kind of brings you in. He says, "Hey, I love you, man." So you kind of saw that on TV, especially. I saw it. I didn't necessarily see that live, but obviously,
I'm telling you, coach is a player's coach. Yeah. These guys who sit in this room love that guy, and he's done so much good for this university. But it's the players too. It's a mutual respect and a mutual love for each other. So that they've, when you see that on TV and maybe some people out there ask questions about it, it's because it's genuine. He cares about his players, and the players care about him, and it's a really, really awesome dynamic.
Landon has, I think, a good question. After watching this game, what's your prediction for the rest of our schedule? How many wins do you think we have? I think our floor is 7-5, and our ceiling is 10-2.
Well, we've talked about this, and I am not one for hypotheticals.
Yeah.
I think Vandy has the ability to win every game left on their schedule, but it's going to be up to them and how they show up in preparation every single day. These games down the stretch are going to be won starting tomorrow or today.
Yeah.
But I think if Vandy wins every game here on out, I wouldn't be surprised. But then again, it takes everybody in the building to make that happen. And this is a very driven team. This is like I've said a million times before, this is a great group of young men that do things the right way. I know they'll respond the right way. And I'm encouraged by that. So I think that the sky truly is the limit for this team. Like I said before, and we've talked about, Billy, is like the narrative and the discussion around this place has changed so much. It's gone from just trying to make a bowl game to we're talking our goal is to win and win big in the regular season and go to the playoffs. And then not just there, it's to compete for a national championship and win it. When you can get to that type of conversation, you got a different set of cats in this room. And that's how the talk has been around here. And it's awesome to see. So sky's the limit, but it's going to be up to every guy making the right choices and decisions every single day to get this team where they want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, this is a playoff team if you win out. 10-2 in the SEC gets you in the playoff.
Right.
9-3, we'll see how many other 9-3 teams are there.
How many teams, like just kind of open this conversation up, like how many teams last year in the SEC had 3 losses and missed the playoff? Was it 3? Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama. Yeah. Slim margins. Those were 3 really good teams last year, especially South Carolina down the stretch. Late. Ole Miss, obviously a great team this year, doing a lot of great things offensively and defensively. Another one of those teams that has really put the pieces of the puzzle together better each year that Coach Kiffin's been there. Pretty similar. I wouldn't say it's too comparable, but there's similarities between Ole Miss's tenure under Coach Kiffin and here at Vanderbilt under Coach Lee.
Yeah.
They just get better every year.
No, I'm with you. And kind of the same sort of thing with Beamer. And Clark has talked about that, some of the similarities between him and kind of the timeline of those programs. But obviously, look, Vandy's, like you've talked about, Joe, they're hitting the bye week. You've got 2 weeks to prepare for LSU. I'm sure the staff will hit on some LSU prep at some point this week and get going on that. It's kind of what happens when you have 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent.
Yeah, but you know what? This is such a game of preparation that these coaches have been breaking down LSU since literally when they played LSU last year.
Yeah, right.
That there's nothing that they aren't trying to find a hidden wrinkle here and there. Maybe they have a new quarterbacks coach that's from Cal or something like that, and he used to run this when he was a offensive coordinator at little school on the prairie or something like that.
Yeah,
like they are doing a deep dive into everything possible to find an edge. So I know this staff is going to be ready to go, and they're going to do a phenomenal job of getting these guys in a position to be successful. Yeah. So I'm excited for this program, man.
LSU, meanwhile, has a home game against South Carolina. So, again, Vanderbilt gets a chance this week to kind of sit back, watch that game. They've already played South Carolina. They know what they're about. And they'll obviously get to get another LSU game on film. But Joe, it'll be interesting. No presser this week, no Tuesday presser, so that's a little bit different. No game, but we'll get into full LSU prep next week, and we'll have some coverage this week throughout the bye. But man, appreciated it. That was fun in Tuscaloosa, and it was fun being down there. Like I said, the tailgate was awesome. It was good to meet some people that listen to the podcast and watch us.
Yeah, apparently people actually listen to this stuff.
No, but
apparently they actually like it too.
Yeah, no, hopefully we're doing some good things and putting some good content out there. But yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to be here for you guys and put out some good stuff. So again, apologies, we were a little late tonight. We're gonna it's a little tough some Sundays to do it, on a certain time, but typically 6, 7 o'clock is kind of the range, maybe 5 o'clock certain Sundays. But it's been a blast.
Billy's got a job. I've got a job. We're running around with everything kind of pulling us every which directions. But each week, like we're saying, if there's a place on campus or anything you guys would think would be cool place to set our little podcast up at and review the game or the upcoming game, man. Put it in the comments. Let us know. We are all ears. Heck, we're here to serve. So you guys just let us know. And seriously, if there's any topics you guys would like me to cover from a wealth management standpoint, I'm always happy to include those on our weekly themes. But also some things from the upcoming games that we haven't touched on enough yet, and you guys want us to touch on going forward. Just let us know. We'll be very happy to include those as well.
Well, that's Joe Bulovas. I'm Billy Derrick. Thanks again, everybody, for watching today's podcast, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Dan.